Okay, it's 8:05 p.m. and I'm calling to order night 7 of the Arlington Annual Town Meeting. Let me adjust the audio here. Okay. Once again, I'd like to thank Arlington Community Media, Inc. for broadcasting, live streaming, and archiving town meeting each night, and thank you for all that you do to make town government accessible to the community. First, a reminder that next Monday, May 25th, is Memorial Day, and town meeting does not convene on that day, and Mr. Hurd will make a motion to that effect in a little bit. As I announced over email last week, Articles 89 through 96 are resolutions, and each resolution article is allowed 2 speakers, one speaking in favor and one in opposition, plus anyone making subsidiary motions such as amendments or substitute motions that I've approved in advance. Will not be taking motions from the floor. As in previous years, there will be no live speaker queue for resolution articles. Anyone interested in addressing a resolution article as an opponent or to introduce a motion must contact me in advance. Next, I've received complaints from some town meeting members about a certain private communication channel that's widely used among town meeting members, and specifically the use of that channel for a sort of competition to make motions to terminate debate. First, I'm not in a position to monitor or police what goes on in a private communication channel, and open meeting law, based on conversations that I've had with town council, open meeting law does not apply to town meeting. However, I ask that you be mindful of the impact that your private actions have on public institutions. If your private actions are breeding resentment among town meeting members and eroding public trust in this institution as deliberation moves outside of public view, then please reconsider what you're doing or how you're doing it. I'm working on some ideas for handling motions to terminate debate, but they're not ready for prime time. If you have ideas for improving how these motions are handled at the meeting, send me your ideas sometime after town meeting dissolves, and I'll be happy to discuss those ideas with the Town Meeting Procedures Committee. Last thing I'll say about this is that terminating debate serves an important function, which is to help us finish town meeting sometime before summer. Some towns actually don't have a motion to terminate debate, and somehow they finish much earlier than us. Different towns have different cultures around how they run their meetings. So for us, it ensures that less than 1/3 of the meeting does not hold more than 2/3 of the meeting captive to a debate that it does not want to have. And the current way to offer that motion is to get into the speaker queue before it gets particularly long. I just ask that when you communicate privately about that, please be respectful of each other and respectful of the public deliberative process. On a happier note, tonight we are joined by Alexandra and Olivia Morales, who are sophomores at Arlington High School and Smith College, different types of sophomores, respectively. They're sisters. You can catch Alexandra on June 20th at Arlington Porch Fest, where she'll be performing at the Leslie Ellis School. So please stand and let's join them in the national anthem. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air,
Great, thank you. Mr. Hurd?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Hurd, Chair of the Select Board. It is moved that if all of the business of the meeting as set forth in the warrant for the annual town meeting is not disposed of at this session, when the meeting adjourns, it adjourns to Wednesday, May 20th, 2026 at 8 p.m. in Town Hall.
Okay, we have a motion that when we reconvene, it'll be to Wednesday at 8 p.m. And a second. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. It is a majority vote. Right. My mistake earlier, I mentioned that there'd be a motion about next Monday. We'll have that motion on Wednesday that will reconvene the following Wednesday. Okay, so let's bring up the test vote now. And the question is, true or false, the motion to terminate debate originated as a British parliamentary procedure to prevent minority filibusters. 1 for true, 2 for false, or 3 to abstain. Okay, let's close voting. Okay, and the motion passes. The first use of the previous question, let's cycle through the screens now. The first use of the previous question dates back to May 25th, 1604 in the English Parliament, but it functioned differently from the motion we use today. The modern form of the motion originated in the French National Assembly in 1789 as clôture, which means ending. So the correct answer is actually false. All right. Okay. And as we're cycling through those screens, do we have any announcements or resolutions tonight? Yes, Ms. Mann. Oh, and I believe, actually, did we get through all the screens? Can we get through all the screens first?
Yeah. This is not Food Link. Not Food Link.
It's not for Food Link. Oh, it's something else. Do you have a slide for this or no?
Hi, my name is Nora Mann, Precinct 20, and I'm speaking as a member of the Sims Hospital Fund, which was created after Sims Hospital, which I know some of us remember. And some of us might get up here and say, well, I was born there, or my Nana was born there, and it's not there anymore. But the money that was left over when it closed, like many small community hospitals, went into a charity. The charity is run by this Sims Memorial Fund Committee, and each year we give out grants. We give about $70,000 or $80,000 a year in grants to local nonprofits that are focused on healthcare. Healthcare includes physical health, mental health, behavioral health, and the social determinants of health. Since its inception, we've given out over $1 million in grants to our Arlington organizations. Recent organizations have included Housing Corporation, the AYCC, Council on Aging, Boys and Girls Club, VNA, Food Link, the Arlington Public Schools, Fidelity House, and others. We are now opening our grant process. So if anybody is interested, has a local nonprofit, you have to be a C3, that might be interested in doing the work, focusing on healthcare in the Arlington or the former Sims catchment area, you can apply for a grant. Reach out to John Marr. The deadline to apply will be June 26th. So the applications will be out this Friday, so you'll have about a full month. John's email, it's a very professional email. It's johnnycape@hotmail.com, but he is absolutely 100% dedicated to this, and if you reach out to him with any questions or with an interest in applying, he will send you the application and get you all the information you need. I encourage anybody who thinks that they know of a local charity to apply. The money is well used for members of our community here. Thank you.
Was that microphone cutting out for other folks? Okay, so maybe we'll try the center mic, see if we have better. What's that? It was the distance from the mic that was the issue?
All right, this was bad. This is better. Get closer. Better. Not good.
Right.
I'm just modeling
Okay.
for the
All right.
future. Okay.
All right. Well, we'll figure it out on a speaker-by-speaker basis. Any other announcements or resolutions tonight? Hand in the back, and then Ms. Deschler. Yeah.
Hi, Marina Popova, Precinct 13. It's,
You try the center mic, yeah.
okay, is that on better? It's Marina Popova, Precinct 13. I have a big ask for help. I'm looking for help with placement of one native beautiful tree, which is very, very large. It's actually a sycamore. And I'm not trying to get rid of the tree. I would never do that. Those who know me know that. I got this tree as a giveaway for the Arbor Day, but it is huge. It can grow up to 100 feet. So I'm looking for help in finding a good place for this tree. So if you know of anyone who has space to plant this tree, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Deschler, and then Mr. Schlickman.
Christine Deschler, Chair of the Finance Committee. I am anticipating a few vacancies on the Finance Committee this year. If you are interested in serving on the Finance Committee, keep an eye on the town's website this summer, or send me an email, and my email address is on the town website. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schlickman?
Hi, town meeting.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back. I want to thank everybody who sent me an individual message over the past week. But most of all, I want to thank the community here for your love and support for my wife, Rieko, who came home from both Monday and Wednesday night sessions, just filled with the love in this room, and marveling how wonderful it is to be a member of Arlington Town Meeting and of this community. So thank you very much.
Any other announcements or resolutions? Seeing none, are there any reports of committees to be received? Seeing none, we are now resuming Article 53, and we had a postponement for Article 30, which we'll take up after the completion of Article 53, and then we'll pick up Article 54 after that. Unless that was on the consent agenda, it was not. Okay. Okay. Can we bring up the speaker queue from when we adjourned last Wednesday? And I do have photographic backups in case we need it, but it looks like we have it. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So we'll now resume with Mr. Fisher, Andrew Fisher. A point of order in the back. Yeah. I think the question was, he believed that Mr. Benson was next. Was that the assertion?
Peter Fiore, Precinct 2. Yes, Mr. Moderator, I remember that Mr. Benson was next on the list to speak.
Let me check the photo that I have from the end of Wednesday night.
You know, like me up here doing this.
Nope, so we had Pi Fisher, who made a motion to terminate debate, which failed, and then Andrew Fisher was next in the speaker queue from, yes, Wednesday. Yes, Mr. Revelak?
Benson presented an amendment at the beginning?
He presented an amendment at the beginning of deliberation on Article 53, correct? Yeah. Yep. Mr. Fisher, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Paul Slick. Thank you, Andrew Fisher, Precinct 6. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Paul Schlickmans, for saying the words "love in this room," because I was going to indulge in my usual viciousness. I just want to explain, I didn't prepare anything because I did think about this thing for half the weekend despite having company around, because I was going to contrive to have Mr. Benson take my place. He told me tonight, it just seemed so fake, I didn't want to do it, he didn't want to do it. I said, you're right. I just learned that we had to pretend and make up some questions. And I just want to say, the reason I wanted to do it, because I was afraid someone was going to terminate debate. And now I'm livid because people are playing games. Did I hear it right that they're gambling? Or is it rhetorical bets, or what is this?
No, I said there's something of a competitive nature, I think it was.
Well,
That's what was relayed to me, yeah.
There was something up that caused you to discuss it, and I couldn't believe my ears. I mean, here's people like Mr. Benson and others trying to have a dignified process. The only thing hadn't been said just because it's so obvious, but I'll say it anyway.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
Mr. Fisher, can we focus on the material of Article 53 rather than the procedure?
The only thing that hasn't been said, I'm trying to not say stuff that's been said already 10 times. And it shouldn't need to be said, but this basic argument has been over what the question is, what's true? I think most of us know the ARB's own consultant said 10,000 feet gets you 6,000 feet. The Chamber of Commerce, da-da-da. Diane Mahan understood it. Just concentrate on what's true. If it should be revoted and you disagree with it, file a warrant article. So I think you get the gist, and I hope I've said this in a loving way. I really do. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll take Mr. Slotnick next, followed by Mr. Cook.
Larry Slotnick, Precinct 7. I feel I need to allude to the private communication channel that was also mentioned, but I'm going to say the words of a fellow town meeting member and continue from there. The intent of a past town meeting is quite irrelevant. The law is what the law is. What I may have believed was our intent when we passed the law in 2023 may be different from your belief. But at the end of the day, we are left with the legal text we approved. And if we approve text with some ambiguity, the ARB has discretion to interpret that in reasonable ways. Current town meeting is not bound by past town meeting votes. Otherwise, how would we ever change anything? I'll stop there. Now I'd like to read the 2023 bylaw. In the MBMF overlay district for properties abutting Broadway, where the ground floor at street level will be at least 60% occupied by eating and drinking establishments, business services, childcare, or retail uses, there are no residential units on the ground floor at street level, and the frontage is at least 80% occupied by said non-residential uses. This will earn a bonus floor to make a 5-story building. I'd like to ask Select Board Member Mahan if I can read her email that she circulated on Sunday.
Ms. Mahan, she agrees that that's okay.
Vote to support local businesses and economic development. Please vote yes on Article 53, the Kuehlen Slotnick motion, substitute motion. Yes on Kuehlen Slotnick, and yes on the Benson amendment. As I was engaging with Arlington voters on the override, who were yes, no, or undecided voters, I heard one unifying and consistent request from all three groups of voters. Arlington needs more usable business development and more revenues from that development, even if it comes in small, incremental steps. Arlington faces a shortage of viable commercial space, making it difficult for new businesses to move to town and difficult for existing businesses to stay. Businesses are seeking spaces in the range of 2,000 to 5,000 square feet, and sometimes as much as 8,000 or more. The Chamber of Commerce and the town's Economic Development Coordinator have both emphasized the need for larger commercial spaces. The Redevelopment Board, when it originally held the hearing on this warrant article, had members Rachel Zemberry and Eugene Benson voting in favor of Article 53. Article 53 preserves the original intent of the MBTA Communities Act commercial bonus. In exchange for additional height and easing of setbacks, the bylaw requires 60% ground floor commercial space. The 60% requirement ensures that new spaces are large enough to be viable. Small storefronts often remain vacant. Why would we create more unusable commercial space? We have been hearing from businesses that want to operate their businesses here in Arlington, but they need more usable space. The 60% requirement opens the door and welcomes a wider and more diverse range of businesses in Arlington. This approach is supported by public input as well as by the town's consultant, UTILE, the town's Economic Development Coordinator, and Chamber of Commerce. The Cullinane motion restores a clear, proportional standard that applies across all MBTA overlay properties or parcels on Mass Ave and Broadway, not just on a single project. The answers the demand from residents that the town create a welcoming environment for new, growing businesses while encouraging existing businesses to stay. So having said that, I just want to reemphasize for everyone, whether or not you live anywhere near Broadway or Mass Ave, any other part of town, that it's the Broadway part of this article from 2023 that brings about the most drastic change in the landscape of the town. As we know, Mass Ave has plenty of commercial businesses, dedicated businesses that will be there for a long, long time. Broadway, aside for a couple of areas around where the Dunkin' Donuts and Arlington Eats are located, is currently mostly two-family houses. Okay, these are 2.5-story buildings with about 35 feet of height. Now, for the ARB to encourage developers, applicants, to submit for a commercial bonus without meeting the simple words of the bylaw that we voted on 2.5 years ago, I think isn't right. These applicants have to earn that bonus by providing a commercial space that is really going to add to the vitality of Broadway. If we're going to take this step, and we voted 2.5 years ago to take the step to make Broadway into a commercial corridor, which it has not been, except from sort of close to Route 16 up to about where Eli's gas station is, and make the rest of it going up into Arlington Center a commercial corridor, we need to do it right, and we need to do it right on the first couple of projects. Okay, we shouldn't really set the wrong standard, an inappropriate standard, and be encouraging this sort of proposal from developers unless they're really just meeting the basic words of that bylaw from 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take. There is no point of information. Is it a point of order or point of information? Point of order, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Gordon Jameson, Precinct 12. Am I correct that when various speakers are speaking, they are not really speaking in favor of Article 53, that they're speaking in favor of one of the substitutes, since Article 53, as filed by the ARB, is no action?
That is technically correct, yes.
So personally, I would appreciate it if they used the substitute language and not the Article 53 language. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. It is something that I've noticed, but I'm also not in the habit of coaching people on how to make their cases, but that is technically correct. If you do say that you're in favor of Article 53, Article 53 is just, it's slightly different from Mr. Jameson said. I'll be really brief. Article 53 is just the text that provides the scope of what debate can happen and what actions can be taken under this agenda item of Article 53. So saying you support Article 53 technically means that you support this, that there is an agenda item for this. But what you probably mean, and it's probably helpful to the body if you are clear about that when you address the meeting, as Mr. Jameson said, if you're in favor of specific motions, right? The main motion is no action, which folks are free to be in favor of. They're also free to be in favor of specific motions, like the Cullinan substitute motion, the Macaluso substitute motion, or the Benson amendment to the Macaluso substitute. So just being more clear might be helpful to folks in the audience so they're not getting confused. Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Okay, so next we'll take, point of order, Ms. Malofchik.
Beth Malofchik, Precinct 9. Would Mr. Slotnick please clarify if he's asking us to support the Cullinan-Slotnick amendment?
That would be a matter for debate. A town meeting member can ask Mr. Slotnick when they're recognized from the speaker queue, because that'd be a matter for debate, not a procedural matter.
Mr. Moderator, I'm totally mystified after your explanation after Mr. Jameson's remarks. I'm totally mystified. Thank you.
Okay, acknowledged. And so, let's see, Mr. Cook, followed by Mix Pretzer.
Does this work?
Yeah, sounds like it, yeah.
Town meeting passed MBTA community zoning 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
Grant
name and
Cook,
precinct.
precinct 16.
Thank you.
Town meeting passed MBTA community zoning 2.5 years ago, and we are finally seeing the green shoots of multifamily housing in our town. Our goal then, as it is now, was the creation of more housing. Today we are debating whether to maintain the condition that made these projects in front of us possible. When our citizen working group, remember them, they're in this room, designed this plan, one of the first groups to take up this task, the commercial bonus to me was a deliberate trade-off. If the builder gave up first floor residential units to include commercial space, they could make up for it on an upper floor. When questions arose later about how to execute this, specifically regarding overhang parking, the Arlington Redevelopment Board made the entirely appropriate call to not include those spaces in the commercial bonus calculations. They did not go rogue. They made a practical decision on a use case that had not been raised. And it's a decision we should affirm tonight. Furthermore, as the spring 2026 town meeting, our job is not to play archaeologists trying to discern the exact intent of a meeting from 2.5 years ago. Our responsibility is to decide what is best for our town today. To me, the Cullinan substitute erodes our ability to build housing. The best outcome for corridors like Broadway and Mass Ave is exactly what we are seeing in these projects: viable commercial space on the first floor with 4 floors of homes above it. It's true that our required parking reduces potential commercial square footage, but the commercial spaces being proposed are viable. Think of the small but thriving restaurant in the center, the small but thriving bakery in the Heights, the small but thriving shoe store just across the street. These are the exact types of spaces that can house local purveyors. The Cullinan substitute creates perverse outcomes by trying to enforce stricter and higher criteria by calling a 5-foot overhang a garage. It will actually result in fewer commercial spaces and fewer homes. It explicitly pushes builders away from mixed-use projects towards 4-story apartments completely devoid of commercial space. That's the true irony here. The call talking about larger commercial spaces and then throwing up our hands saying, well, if the outcome is a 4-story apartment building, that's just fine. It's disingenuous to me. It categorizes smaller retail spaces as inherently not viable and not worth developing. I will be voting against the Cullinan substitution. And while I believe the Macaluso substitute is a well-intentioned safety net against potential abuse, we simply haven't seen those abuses materialize. I prefer the current state. Let's not break what is finally starting to work. I urge you to maintain support for the spirit of MBTAC, vote down these substitutes, and keep our town moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take Mix Pretzer, I believe from the satellite room, followed by Mr. Fleming.
Hi, David Pretzer, Precinct 17. I think the basic reality of this article is that if you want to see mixed-use buildings with commercial space, you don't achieve that by making them more difficult to build. The Kulian-Slotnick substitute motion would take some of the proposals that have already happened on MBTAC zoning and make those and ban similar proposals in the future. Those proposals create commercial spaces at which I could see the appeal of larger commercial spaces are plenty big enough for places like Gail Ann's or Breadboard Bakery, local businesses that many of us know and love. I don't think that commercial spaces like that are fundamentally unproductive. And if you look at the amount of space they're working with in those proposals, it's clear that there's simply not room to put a large commercial space on that parcel. So if we were to pass the Kulian-Slotnick substitute motion and the resulting article, then in the future, instead of getting mixed-use proposals like that, in similar situations, we would either get proposals for apartment buildings with no commercial, or the properties would remain as like 1 or 2 family houses. We'd house fewer people. We wouldn't get subsidized affordable units from our inclusionary zoning. We just wouldn't get the benefits of larger mixed-use buildings in these transit corridors. So if you're in favor of commercial space in mixed-use buildings, please vote against the Kulian-Slotnick substitute motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take Mr. Fleming next, followed by Mr. Benson.
James Fleming, Precinct 4. Mr. Moderator, I have a question. It sounds like this article is meant well-intentionedly to address an actual ambiguity in the zoning bylaw, and I was wondering if we could ask, I would like to ask, what is, without this definition currently being in there, what is the current practice that the ARB is following?
I think Mr. Baudouin, described that last week. Mr. Baudouin or Mr. Revlock or anyone from the redevelopment board want to summarize the current practice, the current interpretation that the ARB takes of that CBL section?
Steve Revlock, Arlington.
Middle mic, please, thanks.
Steve Revlock, Arlington Redevelopment Board. The current board's interpretation is 60% of the enclosed area on the ground floor. No, including stairs and elevators.
Is the balcony mic on?
Yeah, it's the interior of the building.
Okay, and
including things like stairs, elevators, interior trash rooms that are inside the building, bicycle parking, and so on.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So if I'm reading the text of the Kulian-Slotnick motion, the change is to increase that area to encompass the footprint of the building, which is by definition equal to or larger than the enclosed area. Is that correct?
Well, it'd be an increase. My understanding is that it'd be an increase in some cases, but it might be the same in other cases.
Correct.
Right. If the footprint, if it's like, if the walls go from the roof straight down to the ground, right? Is that accurate? Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So the only thing that this, if I'm understanding this correctly, the only thing that this article can do is to make it more difficult to get the bonus provisions of MBTA communities, which would make it harder to get additional floors. Is that correct?
I think I would use the word more restrictive. Is that fair? Yeah. The Cullinan substitute motion would make it more restrictive than the current interpretation that the ARB is applying.
And may I also ask, is the Macaluso amendment to change the percentage similarly increasing the restrictiveness, but by a lesser degree than the Cullinan and Slotnick motion?
That is my understanding. And that this question actually came up about scope, and that's why I consider the Macaluso substitute motion within scope because it's on that spectrum between the status quo, which would be continued with a no action vote, and the Cullinan substitute motion, which is more obviously and naturally within scope. And so anything that lies on that spectrum that yields a valid outcome is generally going to be in scope as well. And that's where the Macaluso substitute motion would fall on that, somewhere on that spectrum.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Benson? Followed by Mr. Rudick.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Eugene Benson, Precinct 10. I want to thank Joan Cullinan and Larry Slotnick for their substitute motion and Remy Macaluso for her substitute motion. I urge you to vote in favor of the Cullinan-Slotnick substitute motion, or if not, please vote for the Macaluso substitute motion with my amendment. I could spend the rest of the day telling you what was wrong with what the previous three speakers said, but I only have 6 minutes and 30 seconds left. So let me do this instead. As some of you know, I was a member of the redevelopment board for 9 years, stepping down in February of this year. I was there when the board got the community zoning proposal from the working group and then made significant changes to the zoning proposal before presenting it to town meeting. One aspect of the plan that we had was not to place the MBTA C overlay district in business zone parcels because we wanted those parcels to continue to be commercial and hopefully get redeveloped to better commercial. The overlay was only placed on residential zone properties where we thought residential development would be consistent with state law and the needs of the town and neighborhoods. In keeping with the buildings in those areas, the buildings that be constructed were limited to 3 stories high on the side streets, 4 stories on Mass Ave and Broadway. They all required a 15-foot front yard setback to be used for green space, consistent with residential properties. But because we know commercial is good in town too, we allowed 1 extra story of height on Broadway, 2 on Mass Ave, if certain conditions were met. One of those conditions was at least 60% of the ground floor at street level would be occupied by certain sorts of commercial. The buildings could also be moved up to the sidewalk as is appropriate for commercial. 60% of the ground floor at street level is not defined in the zoning bylaw. That's what this all is about. When I was on the ARB, 3 members decided that only those areas of the ground floor that were enclosed by 4 walls would be counted as the 60, as the entire property. 2 people, Rachel Zemberry, who unfortunately is out of town tonight, and I believe that a parking area underneath the 2nd floor of the building should be counted as part of the ground floor, whether it's enclosed by 4 walls or fewer than 4 walls. Here's the dilemma. When a majority of the ARB decided to interpret the term ground floor at street level to exclude platform parking areas, that's the parking area that's on the ground floor at street level, 2nd floor above, but they haven't enclosed it with walls. When they decided that that did not count toward ground floor, they created a dilemma. And the dilemma was, as developers devote more space to platform parking on the ground floor, but not enclosed, it reduces the amount that's required to be for commercial parking, because the platform parking is not counted toward the 60%. Because this is as-of-right development, not special permit, the ARB can't start messing with it and saying, oh, but that's not enough square footage. They're pretty much stuck with their own definition. The distinction is important because what is built, whether the building can have commercial space, the use of the commercial space, whether the building gets a bonus floor, no front yard setbacks, all depends on the definition. If we allow platform parking not to be counted as the denominator in determining the 60%, we're going to get more platform parking, regardless of the size of the buildings, a little less expensive, and then the developers have more flexibility with what they do in the space. How'd we get to the 60%? The ARB had a public hearing before we brought this to town meeting. At the public hearing, the Chamber of Commerce had written to us and said, we think it should be 80%. We asked the consultant. The consultant said, 80% is too high. 60% would work because 60% of commercial will leave 40% of the footprint for everything else. Now, as the moderator said, footprint is if you look over from the building at top and down, those walls are the footprint. So I want to speak briefly about some of these things. If this passes either of the substitute motions, and I recommend both of them to you, it does not mean new commercial spaces in town. Some parcels in these districts will be large enough to make commercial work. In fact, Ms. Zemberry told me on the phone that one of the two would have worked at 60%, even though it didn't get there because of the way the ARB interpreted it. In addition, there are many existing business zones on Mass Ave and Broadway that are commercial, will continue to be commercial. So this does not mean no new commercial. Second, we will get fewer smaller commercial spaces. And many of you may have seen the letter from the chamber that said, we don't need small spaces, they're not rentable. We need large spaces. So this is not only about housing and commercial spaces, this is about right-sizing the commercial spaces. So I favor the Cullinane substitute motion because it does what I believe was intended. I also favor the Macaluso substitute motion. It gives a little bit more flexibility, but it still sets what I think are essential guardrails. This is our job. If we don't do anything, then this goes undefined. Undefined means who knows what it means. Things may change. Some developer might not like it. It may get appealed. I urge you to vote for either of the substitute motions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take Mr. Rudick next, followed by Mr. Tosti.
Hi, Ben Rudick, Precinct 5. A couple very quick comments. First off, when it comes to zoning, I do whatever Gene tells me to. He's quite smart and knows what he's talking about. Thank you. The other one is, I just want to make a quick point about economics here. So who am I? I'm Ben Rudick. I've got 17 years of experience in commercial real estate, investing and development. In Japan, don't be worried, Japan, Taiwan, but I can do math. I have nothing in Massachusetts. I have no dog in this fight. If you want to buy a shopping center in Tokyo, let me know. So I looked at the numbers for this, and costs have been up tremendously in this area for a variety of reasons. And what the situation now is that if you're building a mixed-use project on Mass Ave, and we have some experts here that can speak more authoritatively about this, you're looking at somewhere north of $600 a foot, including land, soft costs, financing, blah, blah, blah. The retail they're building here is worth about $300 a foot, depending on your rent. So it's kind of similar to affordable housing in that we would all love to have more of it, but it costs more to build than it's worth. So what happens when you require more commercial space? Two things happen. If a project moves forward, then the remaining residential is basically the only thing that pencils on Mass Ave to build, and that you can build it for more than it costs, assuming that you're buying land competitively. What happens is that you're pushing more of the profits of the project to the residential, so you have to price the residential higher. The residential is going to have to cost more to make the project make sense. The more likely thing that happens is you get a variety of projects that just can't move forward at all because the numbers don't work anymore. It'd be similar to like if you required 80% affordable housing, not that we're going to do that, and didn't subsidize it, basically no one would ever build that. So as you think about these proposals, just think that it's not a case that the developers are making money hand over fist. They're in a competitive dynamic with other people looking to buy the land, and requiring more commercial, which is a money loser for them in a big way, shifts the economics towards the residential and also kills some projects. But if you want to kill projects, you should require a lot of commercial. That is not my recommendation. I recommend that we don't do anything really and allow the no action vote to stand or do whatever Gene says. Thank you.
Thank you. Take Mr. Tosti, followed by Mr. Baudouin.
Al Tosti, Precinct 17. I move the previous question on all items under this article.
Okay, we have a motion to terminate debate on all matters under Article 53, and we have a second. All those in favor of terminating debate say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Nay. Debate is terminated. It is a 2/3 vote. So, is there a point of order? Yes. Ms. LaCourte?
Has Ms. Macaluso's submotion been moved?
It has.
Okay, just checking.
Yep. So we have, let's see. So we have 4 motions before us. We have the main motion, which is where we started, recommended vote of no action. We have the Cullinan substitute motion. We have the Macaluso substitute motion, and we have the Benson amendment to the Macaluso substitute motion. So I won't bore you with all the details, but the order in which the meeting will vote on these is in reverse order of them being moved. That won't always be the case. There's technical reasons why and logistical reasons why it might be taken in different orders, but it actually makes sense in this case. Also, the Benson amendment is the most specific, and I think it's most intuitive to take the most specific, narrowest votes first, which in this case would be the amendment to the substitute motion. And if we're taking the amendment first, then we might as well take the substitute motion that it amends right after that. That's most intuitive. And then finally, but then next, the Cullinan substitute motion, and then finally, the main motion. And so I've gotten questions over email about, well, how does this work if how do you have multiple substitute motions? We just take them in order, and each substitute motion in order can basically clobber the main motion with that substitute, right? And so then if you vote on another substitute motion after that, that substitute motion has an opportunity to clobber the main motion, right? And so we're just working our way through a decision tree in a linear sequence, which is what town meeting is. And so, yes, a point of order, Mr. Fisher?
Andrew Fisher, Precinct 6. I apologize, I couldn't follow that. Can you tell us what to do if you want to vote yes on the Cullinan substitute motion, and if that fails, vote on the Macaluso with Mr. Benson's
Yeah, well, we'll take
amendment.
this one, thank you. We'll take this one step at a time. There is a document that we have that we can present that has all of the motions in it, with the exception of the main motion, but you don't need a visual for that. It's just no action at the moment. Do we have that document? It's called Text of the Motions under Article 53. I don't believe it's in the annotated warrant, right? No. But it should be on the presentation system. Do we have that? Okay. Yeah, now scroll to the bottom, please. Okay. Yeah, so so this is the Cullinan substitute motion, which will take third. Scroll down. This is the Macaluso substitute motion, which will take second. And then finally we have the Benson, go back up, the Benson amendment to the Macaluso substitute motion, which is the motion that you'll vote on first. So we're starting with the most specific thing and then kind of working our way to the more general. And then finally, At the end of all this, there'll be a vote on the main motion, which may or may not be substituted. It may be substituted 0 times, 1 time, 2 times, depending on how the votes on the substitute motions go. That probably sounds complicated, but we'll just go through step by step, and I think it'll be more clear as we go through each step. So the first vote we're going to, and all of the subsidiary motions, which means all the motions that are not the main motion, are all majority votes. Yes. Yeah, microphone, please.
I thought I just heard you say that we might be, that this main motion might be substituted twice with 2 different substitute motions? Is that what you said?
Yeah, name and precinct for the record. Can you give your name and precinct?
What?
Can you give your name and precinct?
Oh,
for the
excuse me, Elaine Crowder,
Yeah.
Precinct 19.
Yeah, we just need it for the record. Yes, so the first vote that you all will take will be on the Benson amendment to the Macaluso substitute motion, right? So that's, whether or not you want to change the Macaluso substitute motion. That's the first vote. The second vote will be on the Macaluso substitute motion, which might or might not be amended by the Benson amendment, right? And let's say, for instance, the Macaluso substitute motion passes with a majority vote. The next vote is on the Cullinan substitute motion, and let's say that passes as well. It's all hypothetical, right? Then that means that the main motion would be substituted twice, and the last substitute motion standing basically wins and becomes the main motion. And at that point, the meeting votes on a main motion that had 3 different vote languages associated with it. Right now, it's no action. It could get changed to a Macaluso motion, and then that could get changed to a Cullinan substitute motion. Does that make sense?
Thank you. That explained it. Thank you.
Great. I mean, the harder case is when they all pass because they clobber each other, right? It's simpler when they fail because the main motion just stays the same. It doesn't change, right? And so I'll try to make it as clear as possible at each stage what you're voting on. So you're starting, the first vote is on the Benson amendment to the Macaluso substitute motion. And we added administratively this red underlined text just to make clear what the subject of that clause was, which I think was fairly obvious when reading it, but just to make it explicit so there was no ambiguity going forward. Okay, so let's now bring up a vote on the Benson amendment. Oh, and before we do that, as I said, this amendment and the 2 substitute motions, those pass with a simple majority vote. The main motion requires 2/3. So we're going to take 3 majority votes followed by 1 final 2/3 vote for the main motion. Okay. So voting is now open on the Benson amendment to the Macaluso substitute motion. So if you want to change the Macaluso substitute motion with the text from the Benson amendment, press 1 to make that change, or 2 to leave the Macaluso substitute motion as it was originally written, or 3 to abstain. This is about whether to change or not change the Macaluso substitute motion. Okay, voting is closed. This requires a majority vote. And the motion passes, 186 in the affirmative, 34 in the negative. So the Macaluso substitute motion is now amended. That change has now been applied to the Macaluso substitute motion. So let's go back to that document again, and we'll keep going back and forth until we get this done, because it's a little complicated. And we'll scroll up to the Macaluso substitute motion, and can we show the Benson as well? Because now that's being applied as well. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So and so the Macaluso substitute motion now basically looks like the text on the bottom, because it's now been amended by the Benson amendment. And so what we're voting on now is the amended Macaluso substitute motion. Okay, so let's now bring up a vote on the Macaluso substitute motion as amended. Now, if this vote passes, it'll change the main motion to that substitute motion. And if it fails, the main motion will remain no action for now. Okay, voting is now open. If you're in favor of the Macaluso substitute motion as amended, press 1. If you're opposed to the Macaluso substitute motion and want to leave the main motion as is, press 2. Okay, let's close voting. And again, this requires a majority vote. And the motion passes 167 in the affirmative, 45 in the negative, and 2 abstentions. So the main motion is now the Macaluso motion as amended. That is the main motion right now. Okay. So next, let's go back to the document and show the Cullinan substitute motion. And it adds the underlined text here. Now, substitute motions don't merge with each other, nothing fancy like that. If the Cullinan substitute motion passes, it becomes the new main motion, completely clobbers the current main motion, which is the Macaluso motion. So let's open voting now on the Cullinan substitute motion. Okay, if you're in favor of the Cullinan substitute motion becoming the new main motion, press 1. If you're opposed to changing the main motion, which is currently the Macaluso motion, press 2. Or 3 to abstain. And again, this requires a majority vote. And the motion fails. 101 in the affirmative, 118 in the negative, 1 abstention. It does not reach the majority threshold. So the main motion remains the Macaluso motion as amended. So now we'll open a vote on the main motion, which is the Macaluso motion as amended by the Benson Amendment. And so a vote of yes is in favor of adopting that as the change to the zoning bylaw. A vote of 2 for no would reject that. And it requires a 2/3 vote to change the zoning bylaw with this Macaluso motion as amended. Okay, voting is now open. This requires a 2/3 vote. 1 to amend the zoning bylaw, 2 to not change the zoning bylaw, and 3 to abstain. Okay, voting is closed. This requires a 2/3 vote, and the motion passes 160 in the affirmative, 61 in the negative, 1 abstention. It is a 2/3 vote. That takes us now to, we had a postponement of Article 30 until tonight, and since we just finished our first resumed article, we're going to take up, let's see, Article 30. Let's see, let's see, who do we, yeah. So Mr. DeCoursey, just want to give a brief summary, and then we'll go to Mr. Schlickman. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Steve DeCoursey, member of the Select Board.
Let's settle down. Yep.
Article 30 is entitled Home Rule Legislation, Repeal of MBTA Prohibition, and it seeks to repeal an act that was passed in 1980 that prohibited the MBTA from further planning or construction on the Red Line Northwest extension beyond a point 600 feet northwesterly of Route 2, which is the end of the tail track where Red Line trains are now stored, unless specifically authorized to do so by law enacted after the effective date of this act. The board voted for no action 4-0. Mr. Helmuth recused himself. I'm just going to go through briefly the reasons for that vote. One of them is procedural. Town council raised this at our hearing. He, following the meeting, did further research. And because the article is entitled Home Rule Legislation and seeks the select board filing the legislation, we're limited in terms of what we can do on that. The select board may not file a home rule petition for special legislation that's not specific to the town of Arlington. Chapter 504, Section 16 is not specific. It's the entire extension. I understand the moderator, there's an alternative to addressing this through a resolution, but I believe the moderator has ruled that that would be out of scope given the reading of this. Three other reasons, what I'd call more substantive reasons. The other one was procedural. We viewed Section 16 as being limited to the time period of the construction of the Northwest Extension because of the words in the statute. The Northwest Extension was completed in March of 1985, and in our view, the restriction ended at that time. Two other reasons is that Section 16 itself did not contain an outright prohibition to future planning or construction. It basically said that if there is a subsequently enacted law, the MBTA can perform that planning or construction. Well, this year, our legislative delegation in the House, along with a representative from Lexington, have been successful in adding a amendment to the MBTA budget, which would allow for a feasibility study for the MBTA to study the financial feasibility and department capability by either extending the MBTA red line or creating a bus rapid transit line. That got through the House. The amount was originally $200,000, now it's $50,000. I'm told that it is likely to get through the Senate and onto conference committee. If that was attached to the budget, that would satisfy the so-called the prohibition, if you believe it still exists. That really is looking forward. It calls for a study to take place over the next year. That's exactly the type of thing, a proactive approach to taking a look at the red line extension. We weren't aware of that when we had the hearing. Speaking for myself, I support the efforts of our delegation and hope that becomes part of the budget this year. The two other things I will say is, again, this isn't related to the town of Arlington's planning. It's related to the MBTA's planning, and that's why, in our view, it was beyond our authority to file the legislation. The last thing, and least important, but also significant, is that at the completion of this year's town meeting, we will have 9 home rule petitions pending at the legislature. There were 5 previously, and we voted 4. In our view, the ones that are pending action or pending votes have a higher priority than repealing an act that we believe no longer applies, 1, but 2, we can't take action on it anyway. So for all those reasons, we voted no action.
Thank you. And before we take Mr. Schlickman, can we just show and clear the speaker queue, please? Speaker queue is clear and open for Article 30. Mr. Schlickman, you have the floor. Yeah, the center mic is behaving better.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I've been away for a week. And I note the substitute motion in the annotated warrant is an old one. Did you rule that changing the language to delete home rule and just request legislation would be out of scope?
I don't recall whether I approved a change to the substitute motion. Madam Clerk, I don't recall any change.
I'd like to ask for an administrative change to delete the words file home rule and substitute the word request.
Let's see. Can you repeat that? To strike which?
Strike the words file home rule and replace those 3 words with the word request.
Okay. And looking at the article text, could we bring up the article text just so everyone could see? Okay. See, the town will vote to authorize and request to file home rule legislation or other special legislation. Okay. Let me just pause this. So I have a question for town council. Let's see, for this, can the select board request other kinds of legislation that are not home rule legislation? No, the answer is no. So my understanding is that to request legislation for the select board, for the town meeting to authorize the select board to request legislation would be limited to home rule legislation, which would have no substantive change in the semantics of the motion, is my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. So there'd be kind of no point to making that then.
Okay. Thank you, Paul Schlickman, Precinct 9. A ward boss with a reputation for delivering huge margins of victory for machine candidates had a simple explanation for his success. Someone shouldn't lose their constitutional right to vote just because they died. As a town meeting member representing Precinct 9, which includes Mount Pleasant Cemetery, I've learned a few things about dead people voting in local elections. The first rule is that dead don't need to cast ballots in order to influence town policy. We just need to calcify 46-year-old decisions as to the will of the people and leave them in place without question or challenge. And that's exactly what we are doing if we sit quietly and allow Section 16 of Chapter 504 of the Acts of 1980 to define Arlington's transit future. Here's a brief history behind the 1980 law. Most of the drama surrounding the possible extension of the Red Line through Arlington took place in the 1970s, culminating with a cluster of ballot questions added to the 1977 annual town election. Funding dried up, the MBTA lost interest, and final construction was moving toward completion at Alewife. The T needed a series of easements to complete the so-called tail track west of Alewife Station. The bulk of Chapter 74 of the Acts of 1980 granted temporary and permanent easements. This didn't go away. Most of the easements in there are permanent and still in effect. Chapter 504 was also an opportunity to drive a stake through the heart of any future thoughts of a Red Line extension into Arlington by prohibiting further planning or construction of the Red Line along the Lexington branch right-of-way beyond Thorndike Field. The law took a dead project and rendered it even deader. It was a dead end to a dead end, cloaked in the shroud of a 1977 Arlington politics. I've been advocating for better transit in Arlington for a while, and it seems that I can't discuss our transit needs without encountering the usual collection of dismissive responses. You missed your chance. The train has left the platform. You got what you deserved. Never mind that Arlington has become one of the most transit-friendly towns in the Commonwealth. Instead of rezoning our golf courses to comply with the MBTA Communities Act, we rezone parcels along Broadway and Mass Ave to generate transit-developed oriented housing. We are now at the top of the list of communities encouraging pro-transit growth and at the bottom of the list of MBTA priorities. This is not an academic exercise. We are not playing in the garden of wishes and dreams. We must protect ourselves from the consequences of MBTA neglect, consequences that are clearly on the horizon. For the past several years, the MBTA has been planning a joint development procurement that would have replaced deteriorating Alewife Garage with a new transit-oriented development. They put the plans on the shelf in January when they determined it didn't make financial sense. These plans won't stay on the shelf forever. The Alewife Garage continues to decay. The T continues to spend millions of dollars on duct tape and other patches to keep the thing going. The T wants to free itself from the troublesome garage. From our perspective, the grave danger is that the MBTA will demolish that garage and not extend transit beyond the point now in Arlington. Let me tell you, this law needs to go away. We can support its demise. 3 years ago, 169 town meeting members voted to ask for the repeal of a law banning a transit facility within 75 yards of Arlington Catholic. This was signed into law in 2024. My hope is a strong positive vote tonight sends a strong, simple message. We want the repeal, we want the study, we want to be included in future transit planning. A strong positive vote allows our legislators to use this result as evidence that Arlington wants a seat at the transit planning table. Simple vote. 1, you vote yes, sends a message, you want this law repealed. Vote no, you're fine with leaving it in place. And I just wanted to say that this is a very failed instrument. It's obvious we can't file a home rule petition. That doesn't matter. The only thing matters is the expression of the will of the town meeting tonight. Town council, select board, nobody here is a Supreme Judicial Court. We can't define what we can and cannot legally do. And I think one of the things we can legally do is to send a message and express our view and say this ban on planning transportation along the L5 corridor beyond Thorndike Street is not consistent with our Arlington values, and it's something we shouldn't stand for. Please support the substitute motion.
Thank you. Oh, did you move the motion, Mr. Swan?
I move the substitute motion.
Okay, the substitute motion is so moved. And I believe, Mr. Cunningham, you had a legal opinion that you wished to share with the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Cunningham, Town Council, and I just want to say welcome back to Mr. Schlickman as well, and it gives me no pleasure to offer the opinion that, unfortunately, this particular mechanism where requesting home rule petition from Select Board is impermissible under Article 89, Section 8 of the Massachusetts Constitution and General Law, Chapter 43B. The reason for that is that specifically Section 8 of Article 89 talks about town's ability to request legislation relating to that city or town. Section 16 specifically refers to a point in Arlington, but to repeal it would impact towns other than Arlington, specifically Lexington and Bedford, who were included on the Lexington branch when it was originally thought of in 1976 and 1977. Accordingly, that's the procedural flaw in this plan. But that's, as Mr. Schlickman correctly said, I am not the Supreme Court. That's simply my opinion.
Thank you. So just to clarify, Town Council has offered his legal opinion, but Town Council is not the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, who ultimately would have to decide. I think that would be kind of the final step if it went that far in the courts. And so town meeting is free to do things that either align with or do not align with Town Council's legal opinion, and that'll be addressed downstream. So if there is some issue downstream where something does not align with the law, it'll go through the Attorney General's office, and there's a process. And so I'm not going to, as moderator, I won't stop you procedurally from voting a particular way. That's for the courts to decide, and different people can have different legal opinions on that. And so town meeting has to do what it thinks is right, and then the courts may need to settle it. So that's where we are. So let's show the speaker queue now. We already are. And so we have more than 5 speakers. So let's go ahead and shuffle the order. Okay, did that shuffle? Yes, it did. So we'll start with Leslie Waxman, followed by Mr. Hamlin. What's that? Oh, I see. It has an intent that's blank, so it's probably just a mispress. Mr. Hamlin, followed by Pi Fisher.
Guillermo Hamlin, Precinct 14. While I fully agree with Mr. Schlickman's rule that Town Council is not the Supreme Judicial Court, I think we need not go that step further. I believe we should just let the Attorney General's Municipal Law Unit subject it to municipal review. I'm going to vote in favor of it. I heard the point from Town Council. It's valid. I understand Mr. Schlickman's view. I see the vision. I say we proceed, let the Municipal Law Unit provide their ruling, and we can adjust accordingly, because I think that it's the right thing to do, and I fully agree with proceeding with Mr. Schlickman's substitute motion. And I ask that you join me in doing so. We don't need to really choose one or the other. We can take both correct views and proceed and adjust and position accordingly. We're not wasting anyone's time. We're not hurting the Attorney General in doing so. We're not hurting Town Council. We're just making our point of view heard. And if it's just slightly procedurally incorrect, it's not going to be the end of the world. No one's going to get hurt. Let's pass this, allow the Municipal Law Unit to do its thing, adjust accordingly, and let it be known that Arlington wants this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Pi Fisher from the Satellite Room.
Hi, Fisher, Precinct 6. The potential downsides I've heard for Article 30 are that we don't have power over MBTA planning, the old law no longer has any legal power, and it's procedurally flawed. If those are the downsides, then I say vote yes. The benefit of Article 30 is getting the opportunity for our town meeting to definitively say we oppose the old law and we want more transit in Arlington. One of the benefits of being a town rather than a city is that we have the freedom to try to pass things that we aren't certain we have the authority to enact. The state reviews what we vote on, and they'll block things we can't do, but only after they hear what we want. I encourage you to vote yes on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jameson, followed by Mr. Moore. Christopher Moore.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Gordon Jameson, Precinct 12. What I heard Mr. Hamlin say was we can vote for this. The Attorney General is probably going to rule it out of order. And so the fears of the Select Board are unfounded because it won't ever get to the point where they can file a home rule petition. So I'll be voting for Mr. Schlickman's motion to provide some impetus indirectly that we want more transit. Thank you.
Mr. Moore? Pass. Mr. Newton? Pass. Mr. Revelak? Followed by Mr. Stephen Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Steve Revelak, Precinct 1. In my free time, which I don't necessarily have a lot of these days, I do try to hang out with, find myself hanging out with a bunch of transit and mobility nerds. They're fun people. And on a number of occasions, I've had conversations where someone will ask, hey, so where do you live? And I'll say, I live in Arlington. They'll pause for a second, think, and then say, hey, aren't you all the ones that messed up the red line back in the 70s? So I try to take this with a dose of humility and answer, yeah, mate, that was us. 50 years later, the people still talk about this. So recalling Mr. Hurd's remarks about the override in his State of the Town address, yes, Arlington's finances are a bit stretched right now, and they're likely going to remain that way for the foreseeable future. So a red line station in Arlington Center would have provided a good opportunity for a lot of good transit-oriented development. And we see things, we see this happening in neighboring communities around us. But if that had happened, our fiscal picture might look better than it does today, but it didn't happen, and so we're never going to know for sure. So a number of events in the last century prevented, recent generations of Arlingtonians from having access to mass rail transit. I'd like to hope that we'll do everything we can to make that an option for future generations. So please join me in supporting Article 30. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stephen Moore, followed by Mr. Tosti.
Steve Moore, Precinct 18. I greatly respect Mr. Schlickman, and I very often agree with him. That is not true in this case. The same applies to actually Mr. Revelak, but I don't agree with either of them in this case. I would ask excuse me, I would ask the town, either the town council through you, Mr. Moderator, or Mr. Feeney, the manager, of who currently owns the Minuteman Bikeway?
Mr. Feeney, who owns the Minuteman Bikeway, which presumably is relevant to the possibility of red line extension?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jim Feeney, Town Manager. The MBTA still owns the Minuteman Bikeway. We operate it through a license agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The reason this was voted on by Arlington and Lexington at the time, back in the 70s, was because the plan was to bring the rapid transit down the Minuteman Bikeway. The various towns, Arlington included, decided that they did not want that particular approach to community redevelopment that would follow a rapid transit line. Or at least that was one of the opinions at the time. Other people felt differently. They also had a number of highways on the plans to bring them directly through Lexington and into the center of the city. That also didn't happen. The Minuteman Bikeway is currently owned by the MBTA. It has never changed since it was a railroad back in the 60s and 70s and prior. The Red Line extension, if this rule was removed, could theoretically come back down the Minuteman Bikeway, which is currently a huge asset for the town, this town, other towns. And I would not want to put that at risk through undoing this rule, which is currently a limiting factor on doing that. Now, granted, there has been discussion about a Silver Line sort of rapid bus transit approach as well, and that is a different item than this. But my fear is that nothing should be allowed to threaten the future of the Minuteman Bikeway staying exactly what it is, even though it remains owned by the MBTA. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Mr. Tosti?
Al Tosti, Precinct 17. I move the previous question on this motion.
Okay, we have a motion to terminate debate on all matters under Article 30, and we have a second. All those in favor of terminating debate under Article 30 say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. It is a 2/3 vote. So we'll now proceed with a vote on the Schlickman substitute motion. Which is a motion to substitute. Okay, well, we'll leave it open for an extra minute. So summarizing, this is if you're in favor of the Schlickman substitute motion to substitute the main motion, press 1. If you want to keep the main motion no action, press 2. Or 3 to abstain. Let's keep voting open a little while longer. Votes are still coming in. Okay, we'll close in 5 seconds. Okay, let's close voting. Yes. And the motion passes. 136 in the affirmative, 61 in the negative, 10 abstentions. It is a majority vote. Now takes us to a vote on the main motion as substituted by the Schlickman motion. And I'll just summarize that this is a motion to authorize the Select Board to file home rule legislation to effectively repeal the law that allows, the Massachusetts law that allows planning of a red line past the border of Arlington, essentially. So voting is now open on the main motion as substituted. If you're in favor of the Select Board filing that home rule legislation, press 1. If you're opposed to the Select Board filing that home rule legislation, press 2. And this requires a majority vote. Okay, let's close voting. And the motion passes 145 in the affirmative, 45 in the negative, 11 abstentions. It is a majority vote. And with that, we are at the 9:30 point, so we'll take a 10-minute recess and we'll start at 9:40. Okay, we're getting started. Let's find our seats. And before we resume, I just want to remind everyone to silence their phones. I'm told that phones have been beeping, probably with notifications or something, and that it's been pretty distracting. So please make sure to silence your phones and devices. Okay, we're now resuming at Article 54. And can we show and clear the speaker queue, please? Mr. Revlak, Okay, speaker queue is clear and open for Article 54. Mr. Revlak, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Steve Revlak, Vice Chair of the Arlington Redevelopment Board, and I'd like to introduce Article 54. Article 54 is a citizen petition to amend Section 5312A of the zoning bylaw, which deals with traffic visibility around corners. The Redevelopment Board voted to recommend no action on Article 54 by a vote of 3-2. The majority of board members oppose the article due to the lack of support from the Director of Inspectional Services and aesthetic concerns about the kinds of fences that might be allowed. The board discussed the petitioner's substitute motion during our meeting on April 27th. While we did not take a formal vote, the general sentiment was as outlined in the ARB's report to town meeting for Article 54. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have, this was on the consent agenda and it was held. The proponent has a substitute motion, I believe, to offer. Ms. Monahan?
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Caitlin Monahan, Precinct 8. So today I'll walk you through my substitute motion for warrant Article 54. Next slide, please. Is this better? Okay. So,
and also you need to move your motion at some point. So,
yes. Yeah. I can do that now. I move my motion.
Okay, it is before us. Thank you.
Thank you. So the point of my warrant article is to amend Section 5312A, which is the part of the zoning bylaw that ensures that if you're a driver approaching an intersection in a residential district, you have a clear view of the cross street they're approaching. So it does this by defining a 20-foot by 20-foot triangle, and within that triangle, anything above 3 feet is prohibited unless it's a shade tree. Next slide, please. And the purpose of this is pretty straightforward. Most objects above 3 feet, fences, plants are opaque and would be an impediment to the vision of a driver. Next slide, please. However, there's also some collateral damage to this approach, which is that there are non-opaque fences, which nevertheless are prohibited if they're more than 3 feet tall, despite the fact that they're not actually blocking the view. So in these images, we have from left to right fences which are 30% opaque, 15%, and 32% opaque. They don't block the view, but you can see in the images on the bottom, the red line indicates the height that they would be capped at if they were on a corner of an R district in Arlington. Next slide, please. So the reason this is a problem is that fences are themselves important tools to promote safety. So I have an image there of the Arlington Children's Center, which is an R district property that's owned by the town on a corner in Arlington, and yet it has a fence that's more than 3 feet tall. That's a violation of the zoning bylaw, but it has that fence because that's necessary to protect the kids in the schoolyard. It's also a state law requirement that children's centers need to have fences of at least 4 feet if there's a hazard, such as a busy road. In addition, I've got a picture on the right-hand side of an illustration of why a dog owner might also prefer to have a fence that's more than 3 feet. Next slide, please. So, of course, you might say, we could still just build a fence on a corner lot that's more than 3 feet tall. If you wanted to, you would just have to set it back from the corner. So here's a couple of illustrations about what that would actually look like if you did it. Option 1 on the left is what you would do if you want to maximize the enclosed area in your fence. And this would give you a fence that's running along the hypotenuse of the site triangle. Not a very aesthetically pleasing option. On the right is what you would do if you can't stand the hypotenuse fence, and so you move the whole fence back by 20 feet. And the problem with this is that this is usually going to mean that you're not fencing either the side or the front yard. You usually just have to pick one. Next slide, please. So the solution to this problem is actually already laid out in the zoning bylaw in the very next section, which is 5312B. So in 5312B, this is the section that regulates visibility in and out of driveways, but otherwise it's pretty much analogous to 5312A. So it has this area that's protected. In this case, it's the 5 feet at the front of the lot. And it has a height limit in that area. In this case, a 2.5 foot height limit. But what it also does that 5312A doesn't do is it has an exception. And it says, if your object that's more than 2.5 feet tall doesn't block the view, you can still have it in that front 5 feet area. Next slide, please. So I'm proposing 2 changes. The first one is a pretty administrative change. It's just clarifying the placement of the site triangle. The current bylaw text uses a phrase about the property lines of the intersecting streets, which is confusing to most people because streets do not have property lines. So what I'm doing is changing the text just to clarify the way that Inspectional Services is currently interpreting it, which is to measure the site triangle from the property line and not from the curb. And then the second, more substantive part is that I want to allow fences above 3 feet if they meet 2 criteria. And I want to emphasize that this is only fences. This exception does not apply to anything else. This is a much narrower exception than what we see in 5312B, where they had an exception for anything that doesn't block visibility. If you had, say, vegetation growing on a fence or a sign attached to a fence, those would be prohibited if they're above 3 feet. But for fences, they have to meet 2 criteria. One is that they cannot materially impede the vision of operators of motor vehicles. And then the second is just kind of an extra guide and clarification, just an additional guardrail, which is that the fence needs to be less than 35% opaque. And I came up with that number just by measuring several fences. And in general, fences that are wrought iron, ornamental aluminum, cable rail, or chain link tend to come in under 35%. Whereas a lot of the fences that block the view a little bit more, most of the wood fences tend to come in more than 35%. Next slide, please. So this would have several impacts. First, it would make it easier for people to build taller fences on corner lots, and so this would reduce the risk of children and dogs running into the street. It would, and this is the big reason I think it's important to do this at town meeting rather than going by individual variances, it would legalize the existing safe fences that already meet these criteria, that are not blocking anyone's view, that cause no problems, but are now technically illegal. Fences like the one at Arlington Children's Center. Third, it would encourage people, if they're going to build a fence in the future, they would have this additional incentive to choose a safe design if they want to have that fence be more than 3 feet, because it would give them additional flexibility about where they put it. It would eliminate the need to choose between non-compliance, which realistically is how a majority of people handle this bylaw right now, variance, which is an expensive and a time-consuming process, or just not being able to use their yard the way that they want to. And then finally, I think it would increase the perceived legitimacy of the bylaw because it would align the bylaw with its own stated values. So with that, I would urge you to vote yes if you think as I do, that this will promote safety in Arlington. If you think it doesn't, then let's have a discussion about why a bylaw that specifically says that vision cannot be impaired is problematic, because I'm not aware of why that's the case. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's switch over now to the speaker queue. And we have more than 5 speakers, so let's go ahead and shuffle that. Okay, so start with Mr. Newton. Pass. Followed, let's see, Mr. Knoll. Followed by Mr. Moore, Christopher Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Gabe Knoll, Precinct 8. I just have a couple of points. One, because Mr. Evelek was kind enough to clarify what it was that the Select Board voted against, I did want to bring up the fact that this proposal has been put to the ARB twice, and because of the way things work, there have been different members the 2 times that it was put forward. So if we look at the total number, there have been 6 people that on the ARB that voted for this, 3 voted for, 3 voted against, if you take the total. Both times it came out to be 3-2 against, but again, depending on who's on that board, the vote does change. So following that, Mr. Moderator, would it be possible to get Director of Inspectional Services to address why he is opposed to this motion?
Mr. Champa, can you say why you were opposed to taking action under this article?
Mike Champa, Director of Inspectional Services. This may take a little longer than you expected. Site triangles are not new, and they are not specific to the town of Arlington. For the past 70 to 80 years, traffic engineers and other traffic safety experts have provided national guidance on visibility at street corners. So countrywide, we're all basically following the same guidelines. Those guidelines are passed on to the state. The state passes those on to municipalities, and that's how we ended up with the regulations that we have now. It's important for town meeting members to understand the types of studies that helped develop this guidance, considerations for elevation changes in the road, where parked cars may or may not be, height of approaching pedestrians, bicycles, or vehicles, nighttime versus daytime lighting, sun glare versus clouds, rain versus fog or snow, trees, telephone poles, fire hydrants, fall versus spring bloom, reflections off the road, street signage or structures, roadway lighting, the number of pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicles during peak traffic, actual vehicle speed, and vehicle blind spots. So pretty inclusive list, and then you have to take that whole list and consider how that will affect the line of sight for different drivers with varying eye heights and varying height vehicles as what they see changes as they approach, enter, exit, pass through an intersection. So there's many constantly changing variables that affect visibility on our roadways, and we would be adding taller fences which, regardless of their opacity, would certainly further impair drivers' line of sight in some way. Our office does not put public safety at risk, and that is what we would be doing if we were to make a determination that we're in conflict with guidance that was developed through 80 years of studies and data collection from traffic engineers and other traffic experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Champa. I will say that it's my personal opinion that if you can see through a fence, it does not materially affect the safety of that fence. And the goal of this whole bylaw is a good one. It's for safety. It's to make sure that people can see pedestrians, bicyclists, and cars as they're approaching and going through an intersection. But the current bylaw doesn't really address that. If we're going to have rules, I think it's important that these rules are easily understood and uniformly enforced. Currently, the bylaw is not easily understood. The definition was debated a couple of years ago, and we had people that completely had different interpretations, arguing that they were certain that they were correct on that interpretation. So it's not easily understood. Furthermore, this bylaw is not uniformly enforced. I was tempted to bring a 3-foot-long length of twine and distribute it to everybody in here just so you get an idea of what 3 feet is. Once you have an idea of what 3 feet is, start looking at corner lots. Almost none of them have fences that actually meet the current bylaw. So having a better definition and having preserved the goal, the safety goal of the bylaw, I believe is important. I do want to address the members of the select board the ARB that posited that we might be allowing fences that are not aesthetically pleasing. And while I think we all want to maintain a certain level of aesthetics in town, I do think it's also somewhat undemocratic to say that people who may not be able to afford a fence that isn't chain link being probably the least expensive option, I don't think it's right to say that they can't build a fence just because of what they can afford. Finally, it seems that if all of the illegal fences, plants, and structures that are currently on corner lots have received a variance, which I don't know one way or another whether they have, that seems like we have this bylaw that we ignore, and that leaves us kind of in a position where we have a policy that could boil down to retribution. If you built something that didn't receive a variance, all you have to do is make somebody mad, and they can report you, and then you can be out tens of thousands of dollars for a fence that doesn't materially impede the safety of that fence. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore, followed by Ms. Cutrero, unless that was a mispress. Ms. Cutrero, did you request to speak? We'll sort that out. Mr. Moore, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Christopher Moore, Precinct 14. While I am sympathetic to the desire to keep the dogs from running in the street, as well as the children, I'm concerned about a fence with even an opacity of 35%, and I'll tell you why. When you imagine yourself driving by this fence and wondering who's coming around the corner, you have to deal with not only this side of the fence, the part that's closest to you, but also the other side of the fence that fences the other side of the corner. So 35, you have two fences that as you move will kind of change what their opacity is and create a very fun little pattern. But at their worst, you end up with 35 plus 35, and at their best, you get down to 35 again. But I think the distraction of that moving pattern is a real concern at an opacity as high as 35. If you took the opacity a lot lower, and if some of those pictures showed fences that are kind of nearly invisible, like the cable fences, I think you could probably do better. But I'm concerned with substituting our judgment for what traffic engineers have been studying for years. And I think that it makes more sense to figure out if there's some way to do this that would actually pass muster with real traffic engineers who know a lot more about that kind of thing than I do, and then most of us probably do here, rather than jumping into this thing. I think there are sort of two safety concerns here, and we need to pay attention to both of them. The one with cars and bikes coming to the corner, as well as with trying to contain people inside the lot. So I think at this point, it would make sense to try to figure out what we can do that would achieve this goal without really taking us into a place where we're causing safety issues for the cars and the bikes that are on the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cutrero, did you have a request to speak? Okay, I assume that's no. Mr. Lewicki, followed by Mr. Klein. And I believe the term, if you're the technical type like me, it's a moire pattern in visual design. Yeah. Mr. Lewicki?
JP Lewicki, Precinct 2. I move to amend the Monahan substitute motion by replacing the letters 35 with 25.
So from 35% to 25%, essentially.
Yeah, from 35% to 25%. The intent of this is, I'm not sure how many of you have done this, but I have been trying to visualize what is it going to look like if we have the kind of a corner with these two wrought iron fences. I'm a pedestrian and a bicyclist, also a driver at times, and I've kind of really been trying to wrestle with, will I actually have enough visibility? So I'm proposing this amendment to bring down the opacity threshold. In practice, this means that the more obstructing wrought iron fences would not be an option for these corner lots. It would mean it would have to be either chain link or the cable wire 10% opacity. If you're familiar with the Union Square area in Somerville, there's a dog park off of Summer Street that kind of has a couple different corners. I don't know if that helps visualize it, but so I really respect the effort that's gone into kind of continuing to revise this motion and hope that this amendment will make it a more attractive proposal for a town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, he did. I was going to say, we have Mr. Lewicki made a motion, and I did hear a second. So the Lewicki amendment to the Monahan substitute motion is now before us. And town clerk is getting a signature for that. Okay, so that is moved. So next we'll take Mr. Klein, followed by Mr. Jalkut.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Christian Klein, Precinct 10. Mr. Moderator, the proposal has allows for a different height at the corner. I was wondering if what the maximum height is of a fence that would be allowed in the front yard.
Currently or under the substitute?
Where this substitute does not mention, well, under the motion that was provided, there isn't a statement specifically about what the maximum height of the fence could be within that, so I'm wondering what it would be.
Does anyone from the redevelopment board care to weigh in on what the maximum height, fence height would be? Or Mr. Ciampa? Director Ciampa? Can you say what your interpretation of maximum height is?
Mike Ciampa, Director of Inspectional Services. I'm sorry, is the question what the maximum height would be if this article were to pass?
Yes, it is.
Well, if a maximum height was not set, then it would be whatever was determined to be safe.
And who, Mr. Moderator, would that be a determination that would be made by the Inspectional Services Department, or is that a decision that would be made by the structural engineer?
Director Ciampa, can you say who would make that determination of how high a fence could be built that's safe?
According to Mike Ciampa, Director of Inspectional Services, according to the bylaw currently, the determination would be made by the building inspector.
Okay. The reason I bring this up is that it would be very nice if these fences were, limited to a certain height, but I don't see why, a 6-foot fence would be out of the question for a front yard. And you can imagine having fences up against the sidewalk that are taller than you are could be somewhat imposing, even if it is somewhat open. Mr. Moderator, I would also ask if there is, I'm not sure if there is someone who can answer this question, but not being a very landscape capable person, I was wondering if plants that would be planted along fences such as these would become a hindrance to the site triangle over time.
I imagine that would depend on the type of plant and the season.
Okay. So my concern is just that this becomes, there's two concerns. One is the height of the fences and the imposition that they become, but also that they will become, plants like to climb, and they will probably climb on these fences, and so that opacity will become greater and greater over time. And I'm just sort of concerned that this becomes a giant maintenance problem for the homeowners who are trying to take advantage of this. I really do appreciate the need for security and for safety. I live one house in from a corner. One neighbor has a low 30-inch high chain link fence that contains their dogs and their children very well. My neighbor across the street has a 6-foot tall or a 5.5-foot tall wood fence that goes the entire corner, which I appreciate every winter when their kids are having hockey practice. But otherwise, it does provide a vision hindrance for my corner. And so, although I appreciate where this is coming from and what the intent is here, I think that it does open the doorway to a lot of problems going forward, and I would discourage passage. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take Elizabeth Dre, followed by Mr. Oster.
Good Good evening, Mr. Moderator. Elizabeth Dre, Precinct 10. I am wondering if, I understand that we have received, or we as a municipality receive guidance from the state and the federal decision makers. I'm wondering if anybody knows if other towns also have this restrictive rule, or is it just Arlington, even though we all receive the same guidance? Mr. Moderator.
Yeah, does anyone here, especially up at the front, have knowledge of whether any municipalities have rules similar to this? Director Ciampa, to you? Yeah, are you aware of any other towns that have allowances similar to, or Ms. Monahan, either one?
Mike Ciampa, Director of Inspectional Services. So Belmont has a 20-foot triangle with a maximum height of 3 feet. Watertown has a 25-foot triangle with a maximum height of 2.5 feet. Lexington has a 30-foot triangle with a maximum height of 2.5 feet. And Winchester has a 30-foot triangle with a maximum height of 2.5 feet.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moderator, I'm wondering if there are similar height restrictions in all of the Arlington zoning areas?
Are there similar height restrictions in all of the zoning areas? Mr. Revelak, can you answer that? Or does it, yeah.
So the restriction, I believe, applies in residential districts. So, residential districts do, commercial districts do not. Thank you.
Thank you. And does that include the multifamily districts and the MBTA overlay areas?
Mr. Revelak, do you know, does that include the MBTA overlay districts?
So the section 5 through 12A applies in the Mass Ave Broadway multifamily district. No, I have that backwards. So this applies in the neighborhood multifamily district, but not the Mass Ave Broadway.
Thank you. And is anybody aware of the reason behind that difference?
Mr. Revelak, do you know if there's a rationale why there's asymmetry?
Yes, the rationale was, this restriction doesn't exist in the commercial districts. And generally, it's to allow buildings to come up to the corners so you have, a walkable area. And, the intent was to carry that characteristics into the Mass Ave Broadway, whereas the neighborhood multifamily districts are further off the corridors, and the more residential rules seemed more appropriate there.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Mr. Oster, followed by Mr. Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Adam Oster, Precinct 16. I am wondering if there is anywhere in any applicable bylaw a definition of opacity.
In the zoning bylaw? Was that your question, Mr. Oster? Like specifically in the zoning bylaw, is there a definition of opacity?
Any bylaw that would apply, that would be used to evaluate opacity.
Sure. Mr. Revelak or Mr. Cunningham, is there a definition of opacity anywhere?
The zoning bylaw of the town of Arlington, where it lacks a definition, will fall back to Webster's Unabridged Dictionary. I'm sure they have a definition of opacity.
The assumption, I think, is that, if you have a fence and 35 or 25 or whatever it is of the volume is taken up by something that obstructs vision, that's 35% opacity. But it's not necessarily the case. Functional opacity, perceptive opacity could be very different, and it could be different under different weather conditions. It could be different, if, as another speaker said, when you're looking at an angle, when you're looking through two of them. I guess this is something else we'd have to leave up for somebody else to interpret for us, but I don't think that's a very good idea. And it's really not clear to me how a homeowner is supposed to know if they meet the standard or not, especially since we don't really have a clearly defined standard. So, I really wanted to like this. I think that people on corner lots sort of get the short end of the stick in a couple of ways. They have to shovel 2 sidewalks. And I don't like telling anyone what to do with their property, but, it's a 20-foot side triangle. Just cut off the corner, right? I've seen this done. I can't vote for this. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Mr. Solomon, followed by Mr. Wagner, and Mr. Solomon. Pass. Mr. Wagner, followed by Mr. Selker, and by the way, the Webster definition of opacity is the quality or state of a body that makes it impervious to the rays of light. At least that's the relevant definition. Okay. Mr. Wagner?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Carl Wagner, Precinct 15. I move to terminate debate on the question and all matters before it.
Okay. We have a motion to terminate debate on all matters under Article 54. All those in favor of terminating debate say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. The yeas have it. Debate is terminated with a 2/3 vote. So we will take, there will be 3 votes under this article remaining. There will be a vote on the Lewicki Amendment, which seeks to amend the Monahan substitute motion. Then a vote on the Monahan substitute motion, and then a vote on the main motion. So you should have some good recent practice at doing this. So the Lewicki Amendment is what we'll take first, and it seeks to change the 35% reference in the Monahan substitute motion to 25%. So let's bring up a vote now on the Lewicki Amendment. If you're in favor of changing 35% to 25% in the Monahan substitute motion, press 1. If you want to leave the Monahan substitute motion without changes, then press 2, or 3 to abstain. This is a vote on the Lewicki Amendment to the Monahan substitute. Okay, voting is closed. This requires a majority vote. And the motion passes 105 in the affirmative, 74 in the negative, 15 abstentions. Takes us now to, so the Monahan substitute motion is now amended. That takes us now to a vote on the Monahan substitute as amended. So the text that you see of the Monahan substitute motion, which clarifies the placement of the site triangle and allows fences over 3 feet if they don't block the view of drivers, and less than 25% opacity because it's been amended now. So this vote, if it succeeds, will change the main motion from no action to the Monahan motion's language. So if you're in favor of substituting the Monahan as amended in place of the no action, then press 1 to do the substitution, or 2 to leave no action as the main motion. And this also requires a majority vote. Okay, voting is now closed. And the motion fails, which means that the main motion remains no action. And so now I'll just take a voice vote on the main motion of no action under Article 54. All those in favor of taking no action say yay. Yay. All those opposed to no action say nay. It is a 2/3 vote for no action. All right, that now takes us to Article 55. Let's see, did someone from the ARB wish to speak on Article 55 to offer the recommended vote? And then we'll take Mr. Holman. Oh, and can we show and clear the speaker queue, please? Okay. Yep, so the speaker queue is now clear and open under Article 55. Mr. Revlock, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Steve Rivolack, Vice Chair of the Arlington Redevelopment Board. Article 55 proposes marginally stricter requirements for the use of the affordable housing bonus in the Mass Ave Broadway multifamily district. by changing the way that fractional units are converted to whole units. The redevelopment board voted to recommend no action on Article 55 by a vote of 5-0. Board members preferred to have a single standard for fractional to whole unit conversions rather than having different standards in different parts of the bylaw. The redevelopment board did not have the opportunity to discuss a substitute motion for this article. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now invite up Mr. Holman, who held this from the consent agenda and I believe has a motion to offer.
Aram Holman, Precinct 6. I would like to move to substitute my motion.
Okay, we have a motion for the substitute, and we have a second. It is now before us. Go ahead.
Aram Holman, Precinct 6. I want to walk you through Article 55, which, as Mr. Revelak said, does concern the calculation of required affordable units in the new Mass Ave Broadway district, what some of you call the MBTA district. Let's see. This is about two things. One is counting the number of affordable units. The other issue is whether the redevelopment board is going to follow the bylaw as written when it has no flexibility to deviate. And that is the case here, and I will show that. Next slide, please. So there are two overlapping districts here. There's the townwide district and there's the MBMF district. For the townwide district, you need to build 15% affordable housing. 15% of the units must be affordable. Within the MBMF district, and only within it, there is an opportunity for bonus. If a developer is willing to build more affordable units than is required, the developer may get a 1 or 2 floor bonus. For 22.5% affordable, a 1-floor bonus. For 25%, a 2-floor bonus. Notice it's the number of floors, which is an issue here, not the number of units, just the number of floors. Next slide, please. So the ARB has to follow these two separate bylaws. One, Section 832A, for the 15% affordable. And this says calculate your 15% if you have a decimal. If the decimal is 0.5 or more, round that number up. If it's less than that, round it down. That's established. That's not merely the board's choice. That is required in the bylaw. In the new MBMF district, there is different wording, and the critical two words are at least. A developer must provide at least 22.5 or at least 25% affordable units in order to get these bonuses. Next slide, please. Again, this is an area which by default has 4 floors. This gives an opportunity for a developer to build up to 5 or 6 floors. Next slide, please. So here's a hypothetical with different colors. Suppose a developer wants to build 14 units and wants a 1-floor bonus, for which the developer needs to make at least 22.5% of the units affordable. If you look at the black line in the middle, 22.5% of 14 units is 3.15 units. If you look at the red line above, this is what the ARB would do and is currently doing. It would round that down to 3 units because that 0.15 is less than 0.5. What the ARB should be doing, because 3 units, is not 22.5%. It is 21.4%. That doesn't meet the bylaw requirement for a bonus. In order to do that, the ARB needs to round that up to 4 units, and that's what it should be doing. Next slide, please. So this is really about plain English and basic math. At least means equal to or greater than. This language applies only to these 2 bonuses. It does not apply anywhere else. Next slide, please. So for the bonus, at least means if you have 3.2 units, you need to round that up to 4. If you have 3.5 units or 3.7 or 3.9 or 3.1 units, you need to round that up to 4 in order to make the bonus. Next slide, please. So here's another example, plain English, basic math. A developer wants to build 11 units, wants to get a 1-floor bonus. If you look at the line in black, 22.5% is 2.475 units. You must build at least 2.475 units in order to get this bonus. The ARB would round that down to 2. That is not 22.5, that is 18.2%. That is not enough. The ARB needs to round that up to 3 units. Next slide, please. Again, another example, this is with the 2-floor bonus. Suppose the developer wants to build 17 units and wants a 2-floor bonus, which means the developer must make at least 25% of the units affordable. If you look, 25% of the units is 4.25 units. The ARB would round that down to 4 units, which is only 23.5%. It is not 25. The ARB should round this up to 5 units. Next slide, please. I mentioned earlier when I filed this that I would clarify and strengthen the existing bylaw. I would not change it. I am not changing it. I am merely stating something that to clarify what the ARB needs to do. The at least language in the bylaw implicitly requires the ARB to always round up. Article 55 makes that explicit. Next slide, please. If you take a look at the wording there, what is there in light is already there. It mentions 22.5%. What's in bold and underlined is what I've added. In determining the total number of affordable units required, calculation of a fractional unit shall be rounded up to the next whole number to ensure that at least 22.5% of all units are affordable. This is very plain and very clear. Next slide, please. You see the same thing now for 25% for the 2-floor bonus. Exactly the same language. I am not changing what is required. I am merely specifying that in order to make this at least a certain amount, the ARB must round up all the time.
We're at time, Mr. Holman.
Okay.
Yep.
The ARB must follow 2 separate laws. It cannot mix these for 2 districts. The town meeting should support Article 55 because it clarifies the existing bylaw, reflects what town meeting already voted on, preserves a chance for developers to earn a bonus, helps to increase the supply of affordable housing. I urge you to vote for the Holman substitute vote motion and not the Macaluso motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we have another substitute motion. Ms. Macaluso, do you want to offer speak to your motion?
Mr. Moderator, Sanjay Newton, Precinct 10. Ms. Macaluso could not be here this evening, and I've offered to move her motion for her.
Okay. Ms. Newton, go ahead.
Sanjay Newton, Precinct 10. I move the Macaluso substitute motion.
Okay, it is before us. Thank you.
Mr. Holman has presented you many extreme corner cases, and the Macaluso motion would resolve those corner cases by saying we must at least get an extra unit if we're going to apply the bonus. And it also allows us to keep have one standard for how we round. And that's really what the Macaluso substitute motion would do for us. Speaking as myself, I happened to be the chair of the MBTA Communities Working Group. I can't speak for that group anymore, but I know myself, my intention was that we would have one way of calculating rounding. Whether that's what we ended up in the bylaw or not, that was certainly my intention, and I hope you will continue to have that. I don't think we need 2 different ways of rounding our affordable calculation. I would encourage you to vote for the Macaluso substitute and get what we really would like. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's switch over now to the speaker queue. And we have more than 5 speaking requests. Let's go ahead and shuffle those. Okay, so we'll start with Mr. Moore, Christopher Moore, followed by Mix Pretzer. Mix Pretzer from the satellite room.
Yeah, David Pretzer, Precinct 17. I just want to say that I feel like one of the biggest challenges for anyone in Arlington, in whatever role, in dealing with zoning, is the complexity of understanding the zoning bylaw. There's a lot of text there, a lot of technical things, a lot of calculations. It can be very difficult to follow. I think having different ways of rounding depending on where you are in the bylaw just makes things needlessly confusing. I think having a consistent rounding approach is just, makes it slightly easier to understand. We don't need to be gratuitously different. And so I urge you to vote for the Malacuso substitute motion, which maintains a consistent rounding and addresses the corner cases in a more straightforward way than the other substitute motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take Ms. Marks, followed by Mr. Jalkut.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Melita Marks, Precinct 12. And I would like to express my support for Article 55. Many new or proposed developments in the MBTA overlay district with tall multi-unit buildings, no setbacks and minimal parking are being allowed because of loose interpretations of the minimal affordable unit requirements. This article simply seeks to clarify the bylaw language. It's very clear and simple. It simply says round up. So I don't think there's any confusion about what this means. I think it's actually very simple to follow. This article simply seeks to clarify the existing bylaw language, so it's not interpreted in a manner that reduces the number of affordable units required. After all, that is the whole point of all of this. In order to be granted a bonus floor under the MBTA Act, developers must have at least 22.5% of all units to be affordable for a one-floor bonus or 25 for a two-floor bonus. The bylaw clearly states that fractional units should be rounded up when calculating how many units are required to be affordable. This ensures that, consistent with the existing bylaw, and the town of Arlington awards bonuses to build additional floors, we're getting at least the minimum number of affordable units required to achieve those bonuses. This is a simple clarification rather than a rewriting of the bylaw, which the Malacuso amendment seems to do, as the other proposed amendment, and it will end up yielding more affordable units overall because of that. Please vote for Article 55.
Can you specify which
the original
motion?
Substitute motion. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Jalkut, followed by Mr. Baudouin.
Daniel Jalkut, Precinct 6. I move to terminate debate on Article 55 and all other matters before us.
Okay, we have a motion to terminate debate, and we have a second. All those in favor of terminating debate on all matters under Article 55 say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. Nay. It is not a two-thirds vote. We'll continue debate. Mr. Baudouin, followed by Mr. Holman again. Oh, so we have more than 5 standing. So let's take a vote on terminating debate. Let's make sure we preserve the speaker queue. Okay, voting is now open on termination of debate. If you want to terminate debate, press 1. If you want to continue debate, press 2. Okay, let's close voting. And the motion passes. It is a simple majority, but it does not reach the 2/3 threshold. Mr. Baudouin, you have the floor. Debate is continued.
Point of order, you said the motion passes, but...
Oh, I'm sorry, the motion fails. So, yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Vincent Baudouin, Precinct 1, and member of the Redevelopment Board, but speaking just on my own behalf. I was a member of the MBTA Communities Working Group along with Mr. Newton, but I'm not myself an expert in financing affordable housing. There are 2 members of the working group who are experts, who have real-life experience, and who I believe are here tonight. And I have a question that I would like to ask. I know that the working group spent significant time discussing each of the bonuses to ensure that we were striking a balance between something that would get the town more of something that it wants, in this case affordable housing, while at the same time making it feasible and not a burden that would make projects unaffordable, impossible to build, et cetera. And I'm wondering if someone could speak to how the bonuses were calculated. Was the intention to use the normal method of rounding or a different method of rounding, and what the impact might be if the Holman substitute motion passes? Specifically, Laura Weiner was a member of the working group and is a town meeting member, and Shana Corman-Houston is a member of the redevelopment board and was a member of the working group. The 2 of them have experience on this issue.
Yes. Is Laura Weiner here? Are you able to answer that question?
Laura Weiner, Precinct 8. I did work on that particular issue with Shana Corman-Houston. Would you come up? Because Shana, it really does work with affordable housing development. I was more on the zoning side.
Yeah, you may address the meeting. Yeah.
Hi, Shana Corman-Houston, member of the Redevelopment Board, Lake Street. So Vince, the question was what was the intention? The intention was not to change the standard, to have one standard. The wording at least was, in my recollection, intended to suggest if one wanted to build more than 22.5% or more than 25%, they were welcome to do so, but not that it would change the method of calculation. And as a second piece, what would that mean? What would increasing it mean? Actually, it would mean quite a bit. So in a previous article, someone spoke to the impact of commercial space and how commercial space was a financial loser. It's the same with affordable housing. No one builds affordable housing to make money, right? So the market rate housing is offsetting it, and you're incentivizing people to build the affordable housing by saying you can build more anything else. And there's a tipping point. 15%, the town said 15% back, I think 25 years ago, and that was, I think, a good and reasonable requirement for multifamily developers. 22.5%, 25%, that is a reach for developers, but a request that we're finding some can achieve. There is a point at which they will no longer be able to build. I've heard about towns, Burlington, Vermont, set their percentage too high and had no multifamily development for 15 years, functionally. So we want to be careful. And I don't know where the threshold is exactly in Arlington, but we want to be careful that we're thoughtful about where we set standards, because they do matter. So,
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, Ms. Corman-Houston and Ms. Weiner. I personally think that it's too early. We've seen only a handful of projects be developed. It's too early to attempt a radical change to the standard. I will personally not be supporting the Hallman substitute motion. I do think the Macaluso substitute motion is a reasonable thing to pass because it simply clarifies the rounding percentage so that there's no confusion and ensures that the number of affordable, in the rare cases where the math works out this way, that the number of extra affordable units would never be zero. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, we have Mr. Hallman next. Did you request? So because this is your second speaking appearance, you get 5 minutes instead of the 7 for the first appearance. It's in the town bylaws.
Thank you. Aaron Holman, Precinct 6. I'd like to ask a member of the Redevelopment Board if I am accurate in saying that in the bylaw, it says the percentage of affordable units exceeds the requirements in section 8.2.3 for a total of at least 22.5% of all units. Is that accurate? And is a similar statement for the two-floor bonus also accurate?
So the question is what you just read accurate text in the zoning bylaw in that section? Mr. Revlock, can you confirm that?
Since I was not following along the bylaw, I cannot check it word for word, but I believe that sounds familiar enough.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, I'd also like to ask, I'd like to pick a number of units and have us actually do the math, because this is about English and math. So maybe I could ask a member of the Redevelopment Board, supposing the developer wanted to build 15 units and get a one-floor bonus. Can you tell me what 22.5% of 15 is?
Offhand, no.
Okay.
Someone have a calculator.
Yes, it is.
Would you be willing to accept that it's 3.35?
Sure.
I'm sorry, 3.375.
That's right. It's
okay.
Yes, 3.375. Yes.
3.375.
Yeah.
Now, perhaps you could tell me, given that that's a decimal amount and you can't build fractional units, how many units would you require a developer to build in order to get that bonus?
So, going by the requirements of section 823, which is referenced in E2, that 3.375 would be rounded down to 3.
Okay. Would you be willing to accept that 3 units is only 20% of 15 units?
Mr. Revlock?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. So, but the bylaw requires that you have at least 22.5% of the units be affordable, but you're saying, you're agreeing that this is only 20% of the units affordable. Is there a contradiction there?
No.
I didn't agree, but
I will say no.
Mr. Revlock, is there a contradiction? How do you reconcile that?
No, I do not believe so, Mr. Moderator.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I could elaborate and I could explain why there is not a contradiction if you'd like, but it is your time and you can decide.
Mr. Revlock, go ahead.
Sure. So the one additional story may be required if the total percentage of affordable units exceeds the requirements in section 823 for a total of at least 22.5% of the units. So that means we have to go over to 823. Because, if we're exceeding the requirements, then the requirements apply. So in 823, specifically 823A, there are 2 sentences that are relevant to your question. The first, any development subject to this section 8.2, 15% of dwelling units shall be affordable, units as described in section 2. Notice the word shall, I'm going to come back to that. The other is the final sentence in determining the total number of affordable units required. Calculation of a fractional unit of 0.5 or more shall be rounded up to the next whole number. Now, the word shall is given special meaning in our bylaw. There is a section at the beginning there's a little sentence at the end of section 2.
Maybe I'll leave it there. I'll accept the shall.
Yeah, the shall, but basically shall is given special attention. It says it is mandatory and not advisory, but
no such special attention is given to at least.
The only catch here, the only contradiction is that we have a result where we're saying that for 15 units, only 3 of them is 20%, and we're calling that at least 22.5 units. I think that's a basic contradiction. The contradiction is that the rounding that is required is you have to round up. You cannot selectively round up or down and achieve the requirements of the bonus bylaw. That is the fundamental contradiction here, and you have to decide whether the ARB is going to use the rounding in the 15% section, which is, by the way, for another district. It's not for the MBMF district. It's for townwide. The MBMF has its own district and its own requirements, and the 22.5 or 5% requirement requires you to get that minimum, no matter how you do it. And I
We're
thank
at time,
you for
Mr. Holman.
listening.
We're at time. Thank you. Okay, next is Mr. Bennell, followed by Mr. Wagner. Mr. Wagner, followed by Ms. Riches.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Carl Wagner, Precinct 15. Developers absolutely can build buildings with 25% affordable units. We know this because all those luxury condo things going up all over town have 25% affordable units in them. I also would like to try to say simply, something I'm not known for, what has been said in many words ahead of us. I was at the 126 Broadway discussion, the first case of using this MBTA density bonus, and I heard what was said. The developers said, we really would like to take the law that's for the 15%, for the normal housing in affordable units in normal multifamily housing, and we'd like to pick that, and then we'd like to go and choose the MBTA density bonus law, which is a total separate path. We'd like to mix and match. Sorry, I don't like to do that with my hands because a politician I know does that. But the mixing and matching is not allowed. You either take the 22 and the 22.5 or the 25% law, or you take the 15% normal laws that we have in Arlington. The developers shouldn't have been allowed to mix and match. And I applaud Mr. Holman, and I suggest that you should go for his substitute motion and no others. It really is just trying to tell Arlington that we follow our own laws. We make the building according to the existing law, or we make it with this bonus law, which says at least, and then it gives those two numbers. You've heard too much tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Riches? Pass. Mr. Benson, followed by Mr. Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Eugene Benson, Precinct 10. What everybody forgot to mention so far is the very next section of the MBTA Communities Act, and it's entitled Affordable Housing. And the very first sentence of it reads, Section 8.2 of this bylaw, affordable housing requirements, shall apply to any development under Section 8.5, that's MBTA communities, containing 6 or more dwelling units. Let me repeat that. If you're in MBTA communities and you have 6 or more dwelling units, you apply Section 8.2. What does Section 8.2 say? What Mr. Revelak just said, which is if your fraction is 0.5 or above, it goes up, otherwise it goes down. I read the bylaw the exact opposite way that Mr. Holman reads the bylaw, because I've been reading the section that applies, and I don't think he's seen the section that applies. So you can make the change he's suggesting. It's not the way the bylaw currently reads. The Macaluso substitute motion is sort of like a belt and suspenders thing. If you want to make sure nobody else is misreading the bylaw, you would pass the Macaluso substitute motion. If you want to make it, as Ms. Corman-Houston said, a little bit shaky about whether you'd get more affordable units, you would pass the Holman amendment. I am going to vote against the Holman substitute motion. I'm going to vote for the Macaluso substitute motion because I didn't think I would want to, but now it appears like we need a belt and suspenders here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take Mr. Newton, followed by Mr. Tosti. Mr. Newton? And you introduced the, wait, who introduced the motion? You did, okay.
Sanjay Newton, Precinct 10.
Okay, yeah, so you get 5 minutes then, yep.
Yep. Sanjay Newton, Precinct 10, I move to terminate debate on this article and all items under it.
Okay, we have a motion to terminate debate on all matters under Article 55, and we have a second. All those in favor of terminating debate, say yay. Yay. All those opposed, say nay. It is a 2/3 vote. Debate is terminated. So that we'll now proceed on, oh good, there's no amendments. It's just substitutes. That makes it easier. So we have 2 substitute motions, and we'll take them in reverse order, as we did the others. That won't always be the case, but I think it makes sense here. So we'll start with a vote on the Macaluso substitute. I'm not going to try to summarize these because, as you see, there's interactions between different sections of the zoning bylaws, and I don't want to misspeak or misrepresent. Let's show the text of the Macaluso substitute motion, just so everyone knows what we're voting on here. You have to apply some MIT and Harvard skills for reading and math. So let's, here is the Macaluso substitute motion. It adds this text here. Fractional percentages shall be rounded as specified in section 823A. To qualify for this bonus, the number of affordable units provided must exceed the number ordinarily required by section 8.2. So if you wish to make this the main motion, to add this text to the zoning bylaw, then you can press 1 for yes, and if you want to reject it, press 2 for no. Again, this is for substitution. We're not voting on the main motion yet. Okay, so voting is now open on the Macaluso substitute motion, which requires a majority vote to substitute that text we just saw in place of the main motion, which the main motion is currently no action. Okay, let's close voting. And the motion passes 154 in the affirmative, 36 in the negative, 5 abstentions. The Macaluso motion is now the main motion. That takes us now to the Holman substitute. And so can we show the Holman substitute motion? Can we switch over to the Holman substitute motion under Article 55? Okay. Okay, and let's scroll down. All right, so we'd add these 2 sections here to section 584E2 of the zoning bylaw. One which is a reference to the a clarification of the 22.5% calculation of units that are affordable, and the other for 25% of all affordable, or all units that are affordable for MB, MF district properties facing Mass Ave, and adding a second story to those. Okay. So the vote coming up now is to make that text the main motion, to clobber what currently is the main motion, which is the Macaluso motion. So if you wish to replace the main motion with the Holman motion, press 1 to make the substitution, or 2 to leave the main motion as the Macaluso text. And again, this requires a majority vote on the Holman substitute motion. Okay, let's close voting. It's closed. And the motion fails. 54 in the affirmative, 135 in the negative, 5 abstentions. That now takes us to a vote on the main motion under Article 55, which requires a 2/3 vote, and it is the Macaluso motion, which is now the main motion. And so if you're in favor of making the Macaluso motion's change to the zoning bylaw, you can press 1 when we open voting, and if you wish to not change the zoning bylaw, press 2 to reject the change. Okay, voting is now open. This requires a 2/3 vote on the main motion as substituted by the Macaluso substitute motion. Requires a 2/3 vote. Okay, get your votes in. Let's close voting. And the motion passes 170 in the affirmative, 25 in the negative, and 2 abstentions. Now it takes us to Article 59, and that finishes out our zoning articles. Ms. Deschler, we'll hold the applause until the meeting is dissolved. We still have 9 minutes to finish the rest. All right.
I will do my best. Christine Deschler, Chair of the Finance Committee. Ladies and gentlemen, the remaining finance articles, with perhaps one exception, are annual recurring articles that come before you. The only change year to year are the dollar amounts, but the articles substantively are the same. Starting with PEG access, Article 59. Like other cities and towns in Massachusetts, Arlington collects a percentage of revenue generated by the cable television companies. Unlike most other towns, Arlington passes through everything that, the full amount that we receive on to our local access company, ACMi. Other towns keep a portion of it, we do not. Town meeting is required to approve the passing of these monies onto ACMi, which is what you're being asked to do in Article 59, and the Finance Committee recommends a positive vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And I forgot to clear the speaker queue, so let's switch over to the speaker queue. Apologies for that. And clear the queue. And so if you wish to speak on Article 59, the appropriation for the PEG access budget, please, you can request to speak now. Okay, seeing no request to speak, we'll proceed to a vote on the main motion under Article 59 to appropriate $676,480 in projected cable revenues for fiscal year 2027 PEG access budget. So let's open voting now on the main motion under Article 59. Okay, if you're in favor of this appropriation, press 1. If you're opposed, press 2, or 3 to abstain. Okay, let's close voting. And the motion passes. 179 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, 2 abstentions. That now takes us to Article 60. So let's clear the speaker queue, please.
Christine Deschler, Chair of the Finance Committee. In 2017, town meeting created a parking benefits district in the metered section of Arlington Center. This allows the town to take the net income after expenses from parking meters to make improvements in that area. Those improvements in operational costs are listed on the back of the Select Board's report. By voting to approve Article 60, which the Finance Committee recommends, the town meeting is endorsing those improvements and expenditures. And Mr. Moderator, if I could turn this over to the Deputy Manager to give some further details on this.
Yes, Ms. Wayman.
Thank you, Ms. Deschler. Julie Wayman, Deputy Town Manager of Finance. I'm just going to give a couple more details regarding the budget that Ms. Deschler just referenced in the back of the Select Board report. First, revenue for fiscal 27 is budgeted at 90% of the 25 actual collections, so we anticipate that being $514,000 in fiscal 27. Couple of increases to the expense lines. The Treasurer has begun investigating different vendors to replace the multi-space parking kiosks. And the town has also determined we will need 2 additional in Broadway Plaza. So we've added $25,000 to the fiscal 26 amount of $61,000 for those added expenses. Beginning in 27, we're increasing the amount charged to this fund for enforcement of the district. So previously, 50% of the salaries of the 3 parking control officers and the parking collections manager was charged to this fund. And beginning in 27, we're going to be increasing that to 75% of these salaries. $33,000 has been added to the fiscal 26 amount of $200,000 for the fiscal 27 Russell Common Lot project. The project started this fiscal year and will continue into next fiscal year. The scope is including replanting the islands and the perimeter with improved landscaping and fixing the islands and curbing. We're also adding native plantings and pervious surfacing in the islands to ensure the trees are watered and reducing weeds. Fiscal 27 also budgets $100,000 for seasonal plantings and waterings. A consultant has been engaged to create a low-maintenance sustainable planting plan for the Mass Ave Islands. The 27 budget will be used to complete the design and continue to provide seasonal plantings in the large planters in the center. Also, $50,000 has been added to change out the lights along Mass Ave, so the lights will now be LED and dark sky compliant. Finally, of note, $20,000 has been added for snow clearance in fiscal 27. So in total, maintenance, operation, and improvements within the district for 27 is budgeted at $772,000. With $514,000 in anticipated revenue, we plan to utilize $257,000 of the existing fund balance. We expect to close 27 with a fund balance of $417,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's show the speaker queue now. Okay, we just have 2 speakers, or 1 speaker. Mr. Jameson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Gordon Jameson, Precinct 12. Am I correct that only 2 of these line items, the budgets, involve personnel employed by the town?
Ms. Wayman, are you able to answer that? Do only 2 line items?
Offset to parking budget and offset to parking enforcement budget? Are those the only 2 that involve town employees?
Ms. Wayman?
So the parking enforcement administration is for staff. Yes, what was the other line, Gordon?
Parking budget. Do we have a parking, the treasurer is the...
Oh, well, there's the 4 staff are all within the parking enforcement administration line. Is that what you're asking?
That's for enforcement?
Yep, and for administration.
And for administration?
Yes.
Okay, so, okay. And you know what the next question is going to be.
I don't.
Offsets to healthcare and pensions for those individuals. Thank you. Yes.
You're right. I should have anticipated. Sorry, Julie Wayman, Deputy Town Manager of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Looking forward to seeing that next year.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. It does not currently include benefits, but we'll certainly take that under consideration. Thank you.
I think Mr. Jameson's made his point several times now. Thank you. Seeing no more speakers, we can proceed to a vote on the main motion under Article 60, which is a majority vote to endorse the parking benefit district expenditures of $772,104 in total. So let's now open voting. A lot of folks are entering the speaker queue instead of voting. So just hold on. Okay, voting is now open under the main motion of Article 60. If you're in favor of that endorsement of the expenditures, press 1. If you're opposed, press 2. And this requires a majority vote. Okay, let's just keep quiet until we're done here. We're almost done for the night. Okay, voting is now closed. And the motion passes 176 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative, and 2 abstentions, which takes us now to Article 61. Okay, then we have a motion to adjourn, and we have a second. But first, Ms. Deschler. What's that? Any notices of reconsideration, which I believe Ms. Deschler has.
Christine Deschler, Chair of the Finance Committee. I make a notice of reconsideration for Articles 59 and 60.
Okay. And Madam Clerk, you have those recorded? Great. Thank you. Okay, and so we have now a motion to adjourn before us. All those in favor of adjourning say yay. Yay. All those opposed to adjourning say nay. It is a majority vote. We are adjourned until Wednesday. See you Wednesday night, everyone.